Welcome to the third innings. I'm Jarrod Kimber. This is the show where we talk about the game that just happened, or in this case, the games, plural, that just happened. CSK got over the line against Mumbai. I don't think they were ever particularly close. I think it looks closer than it was, but I never was looking at it going, they've got a realistic chance of winning from here. But a nice moment at the end where MS Dhoni was around. And then in the earlier game, of course, sunrisers be sunrising and went absolutely ballistic there and got themselves into that position. So let's just go through the games. I think the thing to start for with me is, after all these years, has Stephen Fleming finally gone high intent? Has he been, I don't know, Abbey Head pilled or Travashek pilled, right? Like, not opening with Gaikwad and having Rachin Ravindra and Rahul Tripathi at the top of the order. I wonder if that's they just realized that you can't start as slow as they have forever. And then Gaikwad comes in and he's smacking it everywhere. So now I'm thinking they've just decided that this is the way forward, right? Like, which I suppose every other team sort of did a while back. And I think it makes Chennai slightly more dangerous because if they can manage to do that and make the sort of runs that they would like to, it puts them into a position going ahead where they can kind of win games by outscoring teams. And also, of course, through their all-rounders and bowling depth and everything else. So I think it's really good. It didn't work today. Rahul Tripathi didn't make many runs, and Rachin Ravindra ended up batting slower anyway. But if you look at Gaikwad, which I suppose is the third prong of this section, he made 53 off 26, and that's it's not a particularly Gaikwad thing to do. So I think a lot of players are probably, and this isn't just CSK, although I do think there's an element of CSK being involved there, but I think there is a lot of players who have kind of just thought about this and be like, okay, this is the future, right? Like, it's here now. People are already scoring at this rate. What can we do? Let's smack the ball everywhere. So yeah, I think from that point of view, it's a very, very interesting one going ahead. What else did I have on CSK? Oh, well, the bowling, it's kind of a bit boring, isn't it? It did exactly what I thought it would do. Noor Ahmed started with an absolute shocker. I don't know if you remember. He's pretty good at controlling his leg spinner, but his wrong end can literally get away from him. And first ball, I was like, "Ooh, this is no good." But he gets spin, he gets bounce. His wrong end isn't always picked. He's fast. He's just got a lot of different ways of getting you out. And if you compare him to Rashid Khan doesn't really get bounce, for instance, right? And Rashid Khan is still a conventional leg spinner, even if he's a weird conventional leg spinner. Whereas left arm wrist spinners are so rare. So there's a few things that he has, but he's not automatic like Rashid Khan, right? Like, Noor Ahmed doesn't just land the ball on the spot. But I think in this lineup, I don't think that matters as much. Whereas, there have been other times when I've watched him play for other teams where it kind of has mattered a little bit more. But in this particular lineup, when you've got Jadeja and Ashwin, you can throw a little bit. Sam Curran can bowl a little bit of extra. Rachin Ravindra can bowl a little bit, of stuff if they needed it. They just have multiple options if he does have one of his bad days. And he hasn't had as many. I think last IPL, we definitely saw him still in development. I thought he'd be ready by the last IPL, and he wasn't. Since then, I've been pretty confident with him. And what I like is you've got two great defensive bowlers and one great attacking bowler there. As I said, with backups available to them, with other people in that squad. Chennai is almost always the same. It seems to always spin a lot more in the second innings. So that's one worth remembering for the next time we play a game here. But I was looking at the data beforehand, and that's pretty consistent. It spins a lot more in the second innings. And think about how good Chennai were in the first innings. So what are they going to be like if they're defending decent totals? It's going to be very, very hard to go about it. And the only other major note I had from CSK was Sam Curran. I'm just so happy to see Sam Curran used the way that Sam Curran should be used, right? To see Sam Curran actually come on and bowl one over and then be like, it didn't swing much, did it? We don't need him today. Right? And he didn't have to bat it like number 4 or number 5. He was down the order. He was a backup batter. It warms my heart because this whole idea that occasionally England have had, and certainly Punjab had, of like just making him into this front, that's not what he is. he's the ideal cherry on the cake. And he goes back to CSK, and they remember how to use him perfectly, and he looks really good again. So CSK, I don't have many notes on them because they played the way that you would expect them to play, and they got over the line, other than perhaps the Rahul Tripathi / Gaikwad striking, right? Rahul Tripathi opening and then Gaikwad going nuts. Those are the only things that I would have thought was a little bit different. But really good cricket from them and well played. And as I said, I didn't think it was as close as maybe the scores might have made out. Mumbai. It's funny, isn't it? Mumbai bat to 9 and still just lost too many wickets. Like, there is an element of, yeah, there's not much you can do as a side. When and they lost the early wickets. There was Rohit, I don't think likes Khalil Ahmed all that much, but it was a bit of a loosener on leg stump, right? It wasn't a great delivery. Rickleton was probably a little bit unlucky, and then Will Jacks was doing what Will Jacks tries to do, although that one was off the spinner, wasn't it? So I do think there's an element there of I do think there was an element of the seam bowlers probably giving Chennai a good head start, and that's important for Chennai too, going ahead as well. But yeah, I do think they gave him a bit of a head start, but just lost so many wickets all the way through, and I think that's essentially what happened. And it does show you that you can have these huge long batting lineups, and Chahar coming in at 9, and we know that they can do other funky things as well. We call them Bosch if they want to. They can really stack that. But today, that was the problem. And I see here, Genius Genie saying, I feel like Mumbai missed Hardik and Bumrah massively. Hardik obviously would have played a part today, but they were losing so many wickets at the other end. We're assuming that he succeeds and makes runs. Bumrah might have played a role later on when Chennai got themselves in a bit of a slowdown. But and maybe that changes. But when it comes down to it, I just don't think that made a lot of sense. What else was I going to say about them? Obviously, Vignesh, I have quite a few notes on him. So one of the main notes I had on Vignesh was that he is so slow. They showed a side-on shot of him. I think it might have been when he got one of his wickets. And it's been so long since I've seen a ball go up out of a bowler's hand like that. He's bowling at what? Like an English leg spinner pace. Traditionally, that hasn't worked particularly well in India. And, more importantly than that, it basically means that anyone who can use their feet can get to the pitch. And in this day and age, if you can get to the pitch, even a miss hit is probably going to go for 4 or 6, right? So I do think that is something that is worth looking at. But we also saw today the other side of it, which is we've got a whole genre, really, of these new players who don't really use their feet anymore to spinners because they're used to facing really quick spinners over and over again. So they don't dance down the wicket. And because he is hard to pick and he's landing the ball in a pretty good area over and over again, it means that those guys, that sort of Shivan Dubey, Deepak Huda type of players, are kind of a little bit stuck against a slower spinner like this. Be interesting to see him against Heinrich Klaasen, who again doesn't use his feet all that much, but he's kind of found a method against bowlers like this. But yeah, I'm genuinely interested to see how that goes. Being able to land it and spin it both ways is a huge advantage if you are bowling at 78, 78, 80 kilometers per hour. But when people can use their feet, that will change. But he's really exciting. I really like watching him bowl. I think Saurabh on our group chat sent a message through, which is a bit weird, which was that Mumbai Indians put out a short explainer of him. And I clicked on the link, and the short explainer literally says, not much is known about him, and then says that he is a left arm spinner. Not even a finger spinner, not a wrist spinner, just a left arm spinner. It might as well have said, he is a mammal. We believe male. Look, Mumbai didn't have Jasprit Bumrah. They're going to have to get used to that for a little while. And Hardik Pandya wasn't playing in this game. the amount of wickets put them in a situation. I think we now know that if they got into a position in this game where they had put even 15 or 20 more runs on, it might have been a little bit more interesting, but they didn't quite get there. All right, let's have a quick break. Actually, no, sorry. Someone just put a message up. I think. Oh. Yeah, Andy. If it's Gaikwad can't speak. If it's Gaikwad at 3, shouldn't CSK play Conway instead of Curran? He doesn't bowl either and is essentially a mascot. No, well, I mean, with Curran, what they are hoping for, and I'm not sure this Curran exists anymore, if we're being honest, but what they are hoping for, Andy, is on days when it does swing, that Curran becomes a frontline bowler. And also, if you play Conway, I don't think you really want Conway coming in at number 6 or number 7, whereas, that is something that Curran is a lot more used to. I don't really see the point of Conway batting at 4 in this particular team. I like the way that they're kind of setting up with that. But yes, we are going to have to, it's probably something to look at. Huda's probably the Cambodge for Huda thing is maybe more interesting for me. I'm not the world's biggest Huda guy, right? And I never have been. I know he had that one really good year. I know he played for India at one stage, which is remarkable to me. I think Rahul Dravid really liked him. I'm not saying that based on Rahul Dravid saying he liked him, but just like I felt that was a reach when he was picked. I could see a world where they make a change there. There's no hurry with Curran. Curran gives them other flexibilities that you get out of him, and as I said, batting down the order. So later on, they can make a change. Overton is probably the change I would make rather than Conway. If you can work out a lineup where Overton can bat 7, I kind of like that. Overton, Jadeja, Dhoni, all in that sort of bunch towards the end. So there are some games I would probably go with that as a lineup as well. They've got so much flexibility. I think someone else said, are they a favorite already? I mean, I think that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like there's a lot there to like about this team. Shika said, why didn't Trent Bolt go with the last over? Would have been a slight chance for Mumbai. That's just a tactical thing based on the fact it was spinning, right? They went with a spin bowler. I think that's probably fair. I think on that wicket at that stage, it would just seem to be spinning more and more as the game went on, and that's what got them back into the game. It's 4 off 6, mate. If Bolt had come on and Ravindra had edged the first ball for 4, people would be like, oh, they should have bowled spin, right? So I do think that is certainly a big part of it. Was this evening game really better than the afternoon, as people like to say? They'll rather have 140 matches than 240. It's just a closer game, wasn't it? Like, unfortunately, with the Rajasthan, the pitch, they kept batting okay, other than, the early slogging when they probably lost their head, but they had to do that, I suppose, or certainly thought they had to do that. It wasn't really a close game, right? Like the second half of that game wasn't, whereas the low-scoring games where there's something in the wicket could quite often keep you interested. This wasn't that close a game, but it probably kept you interested for a longer period, and that's kind of how cricket works at times, isn't it? Dishant says, is Narayan chucking? Reddit going crazy on this today. I wasn't watching him bowl thinking he was chucking. He bowled in short sleeves, which is hilarious. I felt like he was trolling some people who had been calling him chucking. I think he bowls with a bent arm. And I think anyone who bowls with a bent arm looks like they're chucking. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are, because it's the act of straightening, not the fact that, like, I've got a permanently bent arm now from my accident. And I've never had anyone say anything in a game, but I'm kind of waiting for me to go, if you could straighten my arm, good luck, because I can't, right? So, there is certainly an element of that. I think if he was really chucking, I don't think he'd bowl with long sleeves. Doesn't mean he doesn't know he's chucking, and he is. Reminder, though, and I have said this a million times, Nishant, and I will continue to say this forever from here on in, we should be testing bowlers in game. The IPL has more than enough money to be able to do this. The technology exists. We could use it now. We have decided not to, and so therefore we get people going crazy on Reddit, when what we really should be getting is a no ball call for a bowler accident and making a mistake. JViz says, are home teams allowed to tell the curator what they want from the surface, or is it BCCI set standards? more often than not, the home team is in charge of their surface. There are some situations where there isn't always good communications between the board that might run the pitch and everywhere else. But certainly in Chennai, they will be asking for the sort of wickets they want, and they'll be getting the sort of wickets that they want. This is quite common right across all T20 cricket. This isn't an IPL thing. It's actually, there's much, and I've been saying this for years, but no one really listens. There is so much more pitch doctoring in franchise cricket and first-class cricket than there has ever been in international cricket. So much more. 10 times as much. But no one cares about that. Witness says, grass on pitches to have something for the bowlers. There was something in the bowlers for the second game. Even in the first game, and we'll get to that in a moment, that wicket wasn't as flat as the scores made it out to be, which I think is worth looking at as well. Yash says, we all know the BCCI has a say on home pitches. So if you're an Indian analyst, what's your strategy with World Cup 26? Flat pitches to unleash Jaiswal, Sanju, Abhi, or spin trap? Interesting. The ICC will play a part in this. And so the wickets will, it's very hard. The ICC generally don't roll out roads. We just saw Pakistan. I thought the Pakistan wickets would be even more roady than they were. So it's very rare for the ICC to be involved in roads, whereas it's easier, I think, once the wicket is there to make it a bit spinnier and slowier. I don't know if those are words. If it's me, I'd make an even wicket that helps seam bowling, batting, maybe not seam bowling, maybe the least, but batting and spin. Because I just don't think there's a team as all-round as India. That's the way I would go about it anyway. All right, let's have a quick break. And then when we come back, we will have the second game. Because there were two games. And I feel like I've gone all in on the first one. As an international cricket journalist for 10 years, I tell you what, I have got a collection of international SIM cards that I will never truly understand. Now I find there is a company called Sally who gives you an eSIM, and it makes it all so much easier. So if you're planning on making any trips, download your Sally eSIM app, and you can also get a 15% discount if you say good areas, all one word, at checkout. Travel like a pro with your Sally eSIM today. All right, welcome back. All right, so where are my notes on the second game? Sunrise. Okay, so my first note is, and we did quite a bit of research on this, myself and Varun. That was not a road. Like, it's obviously a batting wicket. I don't think any of us are going to argue that. But that was not a road in the sort of... The ball swung early on. Tikshana got a lot of spin, and Tikshana doesn't even spin the ball that much. Early on, when the ball should have been skinny on straight, and then later on, it was gripping for the slow balls. This makes me think that we're going to get more roads than this at one stage during the tournament. We might not. I mean, I could be wrong. But it does suggest to me that we're going to get wickets that are even flatter at times. And so there is a big chance at that stage for the 300 total to be scored. Now, how likely that is and everything else, I don't know. But I don't know what the odds are or if there are bookmakers laying this. But from my mind, watching this, I just feel like there's a huge chance of that, because I was a bit shocked at the amount of variation that we saw sometimes from the bowling, and it just didn't matter. It just didn't matter. But yeah, again, Sunrisers do what they do. They just score too many runs and sort of crunch the game. I thought they could have scored 300 today, by the way, as well. But Ishan Kishan's the one I think I'm most interested in from this game. I think, or at least I hope I said this during one of the analysis pieces or somewhere along the lines, that I thought Ishan Kishan was probably paid a bit too much for what he'd done so far, but I also thought that this was the time to overpay him because he was coming into his prime. He probably wasn't even the most important, obviously the two guys at the top maybe started it all, and he almost played a fast scoring anchor role. Like, I think he was under the rate of the game, right? But you certainly have a situation there where I do think that, after a bit of an ordinary last year, what I like about players like Ishan Kishan, picking them at this age, this is a really good time for the mega auction for him, is because he's played so much cricket. If he has his normal maturity that we would expect of a batter of his talent, he's also very experienced by this point. So it's not like someone else who might be like, you get some of these bolters, don't you, who haven't played any IPL cricket. They come in, they might have a good year or two at the start, and that's because no one knows how to bowl to them, and then people work it out, and it sort of regresses from there. But if you look at it from someone like Ishan Kishan, everyone knows roughly how to bowl to him, but he also knows how to handle that as well. He's seen everyone. He's seen the 95-mile-an-hour bowlers. He's seen the mystery spinners. He's used to the big crowds and all these sorts of different things. So I think it's a very, very interesting one going ahead with him to see if this is a one-off or if this is the beginning of the upward curve. He's still only 26. So, the curve could happen this year. We might actually see it next year, and this might have been a one-off. But I think if I'm summarizing, I'm very happy with the way that's gone, because it basically means all three, the top three are much more interested in strike rate than they are in average, is probably the way I would put it at the moment. And that's the way that they want to play it, right? Walking Live says, what has really changed with Head since 2022? Can't just be go and play fearlessly. Any technical changes? 2019, 2021, Travis Head looked so mediocre. He's had some technical changes in that I think he's had a bunch of technical changes, actually. Originally, what happened was he came into the side, he failed, and teams just bowled around the wicket to him. And so what he did afterwards is he worked out how to play around the wicket to them. And he worked out how to play around the wicket, but it actually meant that he was cramping up his own shots. And I think, and I don't know who he's been working with, but I think he's gone back to just staying leg side of the ball. Right? And just going, well, now, if you give me any width, I'm going to throw everything I have at it. So in order to stop me, right, you have to catch one of these shots, right? Or you have to hit the very top of off stump, which is what the best bowlers do against him. But also, to go back, Walking Live, it's what I just said. It's the maturity. He showed that he had this ability very young, right? 21, 22, right? And Travis Head is now... He says as he Googles it. Travis Head is now 31. So what happens in 2022? Exactly what I was just saying for Ishan Kishan, right? You mature, you understand your game a little bit more, and you've seen, and someone like Travis Head and Ishan Kishan, they've seen a lot by the time they mature. So I think there's a few different parts there. There's also the thing of allowing him to go off and be Travis Head is a really important thing, because when he first came into the side, whether it be in the IPL, in the Big Bash, or for Australia, there was a certain set of constraints on him, right? There was definitely an element of when we're not going to be in a situation here where we go where we want you to go ballistic. He had a leadership role in South Australia. He wasn't even seen as a massively attacking player when he came into the Australian side. They just thought he'd be good. So I think he's had other roles within that. So that's a big part of it. All right. And what was the last note I had for Sunrisers? Oh, yeah. The last note I had for Sunrisers was I still think their bowling wasn't great, but I don't think it was an issue today. But I did think it was hard to slog. And this is very important going ahead. I don't know how you slog Mohammad Shami and Zampa every single game and be successful without one of them getting 2 or 3 wickets. Very good strike bowlers between the two of them, right? Then you've got Cummins and the off cutters, which are going to work on some pitches and not work on others. So I do think they're a hard wicket at the moment to slog on. A hard attack to slog on. And if you're batting and you make, what are they, about 20% above par with the sort of scores that they can get? What you really want is that sort of hard to slog lineup, which is, if you go back to England 2015 to 2019, what they were trying to do, right? It wasn't a great bowling lineup, but Adil Rashid, Liam Plunkett, even Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali at times could be quite hard to score really quick off if that was the time, if that was the case. So it kind of works quite well for the kind of side they are. Rajasthan. Yeah, so I just want to get onto Rajasthan. I actually have quite a few notes on them, despite the fact that in some ways I think for them this is a throwaway game. There was plenty of evidence that the ball was swinging in that first over. I had access to it, so it was being shown on the BCCI website. You could see how much the ball was swinging on the Hawkeye, so they would have had access to it. Even if the plan was to bowl Tikshana early, keep him away from Klaasen. That was not the right plan on this wicket. They had to bowl probably minimum of 3 overs of swinging up front and then go to Tikshana in the 4th over if they needed to as an emergency. So I think they made a mistake there. And what happened with this wicket is it did actually start to spin quite a bit. And by the time it was spinning and the ball had lost its lacquer, they didn't have a frontline spinner left. And then Nitesh Rana actually bowled a decent first over. Like, there was... I think there was one boundary. I'm trying to remember if it was fully in control or not, but I didn't think it was absolutely terrible there. So that's when you just have to pivot, right? You just have to be smart. And so I think they made a mistake at the top and then they made a mistake in the middle. And we didn't see any more spin except for Tikshana had one more over after Nitesh Rana. They had Rian Parag. I was thinking that, and in fact, I was talking to someone who was asking my opinions on what was happening. I was like, well, I would assume we see Nitesh Rana quite a bit, and then we see maybe one about Nitesh Rana. One from Rian Parag, just to see if it works. The problem with the figures, and we'll get to Jofra Archer in a minute here, but the problem with the figures of this game is, right, let me just bring up the bowling figures so I can see them for a second. Faruqi goes for 16s. Tikshana goes for 13s, bowling with the newer ball. Jofra goes for 19s. Sandeep goes for 12s. And only Deshpande went at 11s, and he was probably their best bowler and picked up a couple of, luckier wickets towards the end. Nitesh Rana goes for 9. Now, it's very possible that his next over goes for 22, right? I'm willing to admit that that is a possibility with the way they were batting and everything else. I'm also willing to admit that what is the point of using your frontline bowlers if they're going at 13s and 16s anyway? Like, at that stage, I think you have to be a little bit more creative. And I don't think they were. So I think they made 2 big mistakes today. It may not have mattered, right? But their bowling attack isn't as good as it used to be, right? And so if it isn't as good as it used to be, I think you just have to be a little bit smarter. And that was my issue today. Just on Jofra Archer, he's clearly not the Jofra Archer that he used to be. The big issue I have now is that, and I noticed this when he's playing against India as well, if the wicket has pace and bounce or any sideways movement, he still looks really good. When it's a slow ball wicket, he used to also be a gun, right? Not quite at Bumrah's level, but he used to be a gun on slow ball wickets. Now his slow balls just kind of seem to either he can't control them or they just sit up. That's probably a revolutions thing, and revolutions usually come from, either the fingers, the wrist, the elbow, or the shoulder. We've seen with Mustafiza what was Mustafiza? Was his the elbow as well? I think that's right. When his elbow went, it's either the shoulder, it's the elbow, and sometimes it can be the fingers, or the fingers are more likely to be something that happens for a finger spinner, than whatever. I just don't think he gets revolutions on his slow balls anymore. And he used to be able to bowl back of the hand slow ball, off-cutting slow ball, and knuckleball. But the off-cutting slow ball was brilliant when he had it, right? And that was all the revolutions, which meant that when he went to the other slow balls, it was his ability to have variation was his advantage. I don't think his knuckleball or his back of the hand slow ball were particularly great on their own. And so now you're looking at him and it's like, he doesn't have that first kind of, that first great delivery to be able to bowl, to be able to bank on. He's not quite as quick as he used to be. He can ramp it up. We have seen him bowl quickly still, but he's not as consistently quick as he used to be. He doesn't get the freakish bounce that he used to get. It's a real concern because, this bowling lineup looks light already. I don't want to judge them too heavily on today, but it looked like before today, right? And if you don't have a captain making decisions perfectly as well, I think all these things play a part. What else did I have on them? Oh yeah, the only other thing I had was I thought, all things considered, their batting held up pretty well today. Mohammad Shami could have run through them. I thought they played Zampa really well. I thought there was a lot of good cricket there that they went with. So I'd be interesting to see what happens going ahead. In fact, we just got a comment here that I'll go straight to because I think it's quite interesting. Why didn't Rajasthan go with Hasaranga today? I think they didn't believe this pitch was going to spin very much. And I'm trying to remember back. I'm pretty sure that they're right. So there's a selection error there. but I don't think that was their fault, because I think if you looked at all the data, you didn't expect. We were shocked when we saw how much Tikshana was, especially of all people. Tikshana with a new ball was spinning the ball like 2 degrees. That's not really something that you would assume he would be able to do on this wicket. So that's probably a selection issue based on, trying to read the wicket, with your eyes and also with the data, and they might have got that wrong. Any wickets where they spin, I think they'll make some changes going ahead. Let me just see if there's any other chats that we haven't got to. We've already done that one and that one. A couple of super stickers too. Thank you very much for my super stickers. There's one from Genius Genie, but I think there was another one before, but I've now lost that as well. And Genius Genie says, why does Jharkhand have so many keepers suddenly? I don't know. Why does England and Sri Lanka have so many keepers as well? They come in batches, I suppose. Vibbo says, what can T20 realistically do as a format for bowlers and attract casual fans? I would still like to see 138 plays 135. We've seen that in some leagues. We saw it in the last World Cup. People didn't seem to love it all that much, Vibbo. There were some great wickets at Pal in the last SA20. I just think you want variety. I have no problem with the Sunrisers having a batting-friendly wicket and Chennai making a spin-friendly wicket. Someone else having a pace-friendly wicket. Someone else having a bouncy wicket, right? That's what you want. There's this whole idea that there was a cricket writer, he used to write about that the perfect test match, I'm not going to get these numbers right, but he'd say, in the first innings, the team is bowled out for 250. The second innings, the team is bowled out for 350. The third innings, the team is bowled out for 350. And in the last innings, you chase 250 and the wicket's deteriorating, right? And I was like, yeah, like I get it. I get the idea of that. There's a little bit for the batters, there's a little bit for the bowlers. Different times, different ones are on top. The pace bowls do well early on, the spin bowls do well at the end. Like I understand the general principle of that. If every test match was like that, it would also be dull, right? You want 500 plays 500 with a team bowled out for 150 and the other team failing to chase it, right? Like you want randomness as well. This whole idea that everything should be exactly the same, it's really interesting to me that you've just seen a game where 155 played was chased down in the last over, and there was a tiny flutter. And I think if Bumrah had played, there would have been a bigger flutter. Isn't that the kind of game of 138 plays 135? There's not much difference. We're only talking 17 runs difference in that. Look, I love a good 115 plays 115, right? But I also love a good 235 plays 225. It just needs to be different all the times. But I find it very interesting that we've had 3 games played and only one of them has been an absolute run fest, and we're already complaining about this. And you're not the only one, Vibbo, to be fair. I've had quite a few people mention this already. Walkie Live says, well, you said Cummins is behind Hazelwood and Stark and white ball. Yeah, everyone said that. No one has ever thought Cummins is better. Than Stark. Hazelwood is a bit interesting because Hazelwood for a long time was kind of ignored as a white ball player. I still think he was really good. He maybe wasn't as versatile as Cummins. I think now, though, I'm not sure I would pick Cummins. I would pick Stark over Cummins anymore, just based on form of the last couple of years. I thought Stark looked like he'd found some form, so hopefully he's back. But he'd been struggling for a long time. Whereas Hazelwood was always... Australia didn't always pick Hazelwood for a long time. And then suddenly he became their best bowler. So I think things have changed a little bit from that point of view. But yeah. Shailesh says, any indication this season bowlers are going to make a comeback, or it's going to be all about the batter still? Am I missing something? Okay, let me just have a look at the 3 games so far, because I feel like I'm massively missing something at the moment. Where are we? So we've had 3 games. We've had 174 plays 177. So the second innings certainly got out of the way. And I think there's some issues. There were some issues with some of the bowling and some of the batting there. But 174 in the first innings, that's about par for worldwide. Slightly under par, I would say, but about par of what we've seen over the last couple of years, especially if you're factoring in that you have an extra batter or a super sub or impact sub or however you look at it, right? So 174 seems fine to me. 286, as I said, absolutely crazy. And the next score was 155. I feel like everyone's jumping in. We've basically seen 3 innings out of the 6 innings so far where batters have been completely on top. We've seen 1 innings where I would say Kolkata gave it away, but there was some good defensive bowling towards the end by RCB. And then we had Chennai bowling really well with the new ball and with spin, and Mumbai bowling really well with spin. So far it's even. I'm not really getting that. Sorry, guys. Common Man says, shouldn't Ratchan be opening with Gaikwad and Tripathi at 3? No, I actually think that there are certain teams I would say that the Tripathi at 3 works. But for me, Tripathi is a low innings scorer. You know he's going to go out pretty quickly. So when you bat him at 3, you're putting him in a situation where a wicket has already fallen and you still want him to go out there and whack the ball. And so let's say he makes 20 off 12. You're going to lose 2 wickets pretty close to each other no matter what, right? Within 3 or 4 overs. So he's done his job, but you've still lost another wicket really early on. If you've got Gaikwad coming in at 3, if he bats the way he has today, you have a situation where Gaikwad can average 30 or 40. Tripathi can bat with complete freedom because not only does he have a fast scorer at the other end, but he also has a guy that can make lots of runs, right? Like Ratchan has multiple gears. So Ratchan can even say, look, I'll take down the balls that are in my area, but everything else, I'm just going to knock a single and get you on strike and you do your job. So yeah, I think I in this particular lineup, especially as they're playing at the moment, I would probably prefer this. When Ratchan was slogging out of his head a couple of years ago in the IPL, was it last year, wasn't it? I thought he was slogging too much at that stage. I don't think he actually has to do that because it's so hard to stop his scoring because he has so many places he could score. When he was slogging, you probably want old Gaikwad to be batting with him or someone like Conway to be batting with him. But as it currently stands and the way they're all going at it at the moment, I like Tripathi opening rather than batting at 3. And there have been other teams going back. You know, I've always been a huge fan of Tripathi. I really like the way he goes about his cricket. I think he's a really interesting, fascinating cricketer. I'm Team Tripathi. I've always been Team Tripathi. I think I wrote a few years ago that whoever it was shouldn't have dumped him. Anyway, you've got to understand a player like Tripathi. And there are teams that he should bat at first drop for. And there are teams that he should open in. Anyway, that's it. Another 3rd innings. As we've said, we won't be here every day, but we'll try and come on as much as we can and do a fair bit of content. We've got a big feature coming up on the main channel in a couple of days and another feature just after that as well. But we're making heaps of things, and there could be a very big announcement coming soon as well, which will affect this channel directly. It may change your life forever. It may not change your life forever, but it may change your life forever. It probably won't change your life forever. But few things do, really. Few things do. As an international cricket journalist for 10 years, I tell you what, I have got a collection of international SIM cards that I will never truly understand. Now I find there is a company called Sally who gives you an eSIM, and it makes it all so much easier. So if you're planning on making any trips, download your Sally eSIM app, and you can also get a 15% discount if you say good areas, all one word, at checkout. Travel like a pro with your Sally eSIM today.